everyone, I'm Chelsea Butler, Executive Editor of KBB, the official publication of the NKBA and KBiz. And today you are listening to our brand new podcast called From the Tap. So our topic today will be pet peeves of the job, where I discuss with industry veteran Patricia Davis Brown, owner of Vero Beach, Florida-based Patricia Davis Brown Designs, some of the challenges of being a design professional and how she overcomes those. She might even share a few of her pet peeves regarding design trends in general. Welcome, Patricia, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Chelsea. It's always a pleasure.
So, having been in the industry since 1985 and owning your own firm since 1992, I'm sure you have some good insight to share with us about challenges that you've overcome through the years.
I sure do.
So I'm going to start. Go ahead.
Long history of them.
Yeah. So I'll start with clients. Can you tell us how you can first define a difficult client and how they can bring you down or ruin your career?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they can be dangerous for sure. I think the more I talk to veterans out there that, you know, as an influencer now, going to the shows, we all network and we all talk and we all tell war stories, and they can be a war story. But, you know, the best thing to do is to try to avoid them and at all costs. So, but first you have to kind of recognize who they are. And I've kind of labeled them, the user, the con, the narcissist, and the mentally challenged, because there truly are people out there that may be going through something that have difficulties, but it does make it really hard for you to carry through on that job. So those are, to me, the top four that I can evaluate and kind of tell you how to avoid them.
Okay, yeah. Can you start with, I guess, the user?
Sure. So the user is that person that wants your information but doesn't want to pay for it. So what they do is they come to the meeting, they listen, they take notes, or take your notes, and then they go home at night and they try to shop it online. And or they say, oh, you know what, I don't need that because I already have it. I already picked one up, and those people are not a good client, because they're never going to pay you what you're worth.
Right.
So the best way to get rid of the user is to charge a consult fee. And I would do it as a block of time. That's how I do it. I tell them that it's 5 hours and what the hourly rate is. And so it's a minimum of 5 hours, so that I'm not wasting my time dealing with them. If they walk, then they're probably the user, wanting something for nothing. Because most people know that if you've been in the industry, especially as long as I have, that you come with a wealth of knowledge, and I don't do it for free. Right. So if they can't understand that, then they're just going to really suck you dry.
The next one that you mentioned is the con.
Yes, the con is the most dangerous. Because the con is really out to con you. A con understands and is very well versed with people that have a professional license. I do. I'm also a licensed interior designer. Almost every architect, engineer, interior designer that I talk to they've run into the con. And it really doesn't matter. They realize, the con knows that if they're complaining, that because you have a license with the state that you live in, they can turn your name into the state, and that becomes a whole ball of wax for any professional, because then at that point, the state's coming after you. And you may be right in the end, but you're going to face the jury, and you're going to have to pay for an attorney. And he knows that you know this. And so even if you win, you're out at a minimum $5,000 or whatever to show up and defend yourself. And then if they win, if you haven't crossed a T or dotted an I, and they know that, you could be out thousands, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I remember you and I talked about this a year or so ago, and I had no idea that any of that was even possible. So that's crazy.
Yeah, and now we're dealing more virtually. One of the cons that I ran into came through the internet. The other one didn't, but it wasn't, I should have known, that it wasn't my client. But they try to, they try to befriend you at first, but there's some clear cut signs that kind of start coming out. If they all of a sudden, if you're, go to a meeting and you take a bunch of notes, you go back to the drawing board, you put them all together, you come back, and then they have you chasing your tail and having you do more and more and more, but then you never can make it the way they like it because they keep changing it. There is a sign of a con artist, because at some point they're going to ask for their money back and you're going to say, are you kidding me? I've got a whole book of my designs that I've given you. I'm not giving you anything. And then that's when the threat comes. And I've talked to several, like I said, professionals. One architect was, he was older in his years, and it put him out of business and left him. He lost everything taking somebody like that to court. And an interior designer friend of mine also ended up, somebody conned her. She had to basically do the bathroom for free. So you've got to be very careful of the con. He is just what I say he is, a con.
Yeah.
And he knows rules. He's looking to cheat.
So I'm excited to talk now about the narcissist.
Did you know 1 in 20 people that you come in contact with, one is probably a narcissist? Oh,
I would have thought more.
I know, we all know them, right? Yes. In the atmosphere we're in, but yeah, the narcissist, as we know, is all about themselves. They're the bragger. How you pick up on a narcissist is they'll literally get to talking so much about themselves. All you have to do is listen. They'll brag about how they rip someone off and think that's really cool. They really will, because they're a narcissist. Wow. And so just like with any narcissist, they have the habit of talking about themselves all the time. So that's a big red flag to me. And that person, once again, it becomes a game to that person. And you have to, you have to protect yourself, because in the end, they want to win. I've paid off a narcissist just to let them think that they won, because they can be dangerous to you. Just like if you marry one, right. That title of that book, Married to the Narcissist. You want to get away from that person as quick as possible and let them think they won. And there's a book out that somebody told me to read. It's called The Sociopath Next Door. Mm-hmm. And that person that told me to read that book, which it was a very interesting book, everybody should read that's going into business or is in business. But she said that a narcissist, you can't fix a narcissist. And she said, you need to just get away from them as quick as you can, because they will really hurt you.
So yeah, definitely those you've identified so far are not the clients you want to work with. So in that note, how do you go about attracting your ideal client?
Charge a design fee. Know your worth. And right. It shows that client that you have confidence. Now, in order for you to do that, you've got to be able to back it up. You can't just have confidence and not have any work. And if you haven't photographed your jobs throughout your career, then you really don't have a lot to show, except by telling people, that you're good, which you can't really be taken seriously. So my advice to anybody entering into the industry and coming up, in the industry, that it's so important is to photograph your work. Now we have so many ways to do that, whereas back in my day, it was, you hired a photographer and you did it. But there's a lot of ways. You don't have to have a lot of money to be able to do that. I always did do photo shoots, but it's so important to photograph for many reasons now, but mainly to be able to attract the clients that you want, to look like a professional. Another thing that's important that you need to do, everybody needs to do this, is get a good website. And don't just hire a local web designer. Oh my gosh, don't do that. Literally go out and look at some of the influencers' websites, kind of get a look feel of what's trending, for website design, so that you look creative, you know, you look your part. Like I just rebuilt mine, and mine was 10 years old. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do it. It was one of my New Year's resolutions that I was going to redo my website and do a new platform for digthisdesign.net. So I did. Come January 1st, I found a really cool team of young millennials or Gen X's, Gen Z's that work virtually. Oh my God, I launched in February. I hired them in January. We launched in February, but they were so great. They, I think only had 2 Zoom meetings like this. Everything else was done in outline form, and I was to answer that way, so that the communication, I didn't really like that at first, but then I said, you know what, I got to give into it. I got to do it. I did it, and I was so pleasantly surprised because they walked me through the process. Now I have a lot of photography, and also, but you know, they looked at all the photography I had. They said, wow, you came with a lot, but I had a built portfolio. But as far as the pictures of myself, I had professional ones done, and they said, you know, we'd really like to see some lifestyle pictures. I said, well, what do you mean? They said, you in one of your jobs. And I said, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So I picked a Windsor job that we had done. It was white gloss cabinetry with it, the whole room, you know, has windows on one side looking out on the pool, another set of windows on the, you know, looking out at the golf course, and windows all around. So a lot of natural light. We picked the time of day we were going to shoot. I put on the most colorful dress. And if you go on Patricia Davis Brown Designs.com, you'll see the bright dress in the white room.
I think I have seen that.
Then we went over to my design center, and I took one of my friends, it wasn't a client, so that we could just do candid, you know, like we were looking at. She actually is a client too, so in all fairness, I am doing a home for her right now, but you know, she was up for it, and we did some lifestyle shots, you know, no glam shots, just lifestyle, like I'm working with a client. So they added that touch to it. And then of course I had a lot of, you know, my professional photography of my work, but then I also, as an influencer, I have a lot of different diversifications in what I do. So I just took pictures from, you know, speaking on a stage or being a K&B insider, and, you know, a lot of fun pictures like that too, to promote those services as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on your website a couple of times in the last few days, and I do remember that dress.
Yes, it's loud.
So the age-old question everybody always asks is, how do you avoid having your clients purchase products online? I think some of the terminology used is shopping you.
Yeah, it's hard to do that, but again, I think you set the rules up front, and you know, I try to be very transparent with my clients that they do pay for consults, so you're not going to get free information, and
right.
You're going to purchase the product from me, and you're going to pay for that product through me at a cost plus whatever we negotiate, and plus consult. So most of the clients that are serious clients that you want are willing to do that because they don't want the hassle of doing, you know, most of the jobs we're doing right now is new home owners. So brand new homes, they're not bringing in old stuff, they want all new. And they want us to do that. But if you're in a market that's doing remodels and you may be mixing, you know, product, and you don't want to spend a lot of time with a client for, you know, a few pieces, and then, you know, they end up buying it somewhere else, and maybe you've only got your consult fee. So you got to have that clear-cut definition of what the relationship is going into it. And if you can see them trying to form that relationship in a way that isn't going to benefit you, just, you know, tell them it's just not the right fit. And a lot of times they respect that, and they get it, and they'll hire you anyways with new rules.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to pivot over to client expectations. How do you deal with it when they're being unrealistic about their budget?
Well, if they're being unrealistic about the budget, it's probably due to me not, you know, explaining or making them understand what the project at hand is going to cost. You know, if you do enough work, you can usually look at a project that's close to that size, especially if it's a kitchen or a bath. I mean,
Right.
that's pretty easy to do. I very quickly, am able to tell them what a job like that would cost with luxury products versus if they step down into, if you have Sub-Zero Wolf versus GE, in ways that you can bring the cost down, but still within realistic, and show them two different kitchens about their size.
Right.
And try to, have them, you don't want them having sticker shock after you've done all that
Right.
work for them. So it's best to have that conversation up front and, set their expectations correctly. And really that's what you're there to do anyways, is to give them valuable information.
Right.
For going through the project. And that's
Sure.
important.
So then what about their unrealistic expectations regarding project timelines?
Yep. Well, once I can usually from the project tell them, let's say it's a remodel, I'm able to tell them your longest lead time is going to be, 12 weeks or whatever it may be. And then from there, you back off for demo and electric and plumbing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm able to talk them through to give them some sort of bubble of a timeline. But once they are okay with all that, and that's all in the notes that my assistant has taken while I'm talking to them, they're given a copy of those notes, have them sign those notes. They want to go forward at that point, they give a deposit, and then we start to develop the design. Once we develop the design and along with the actual AutoCAD design comes a scope of work, which explains everything down to the timeline,
right,
schedule and everything, and what it all entails, along with a floor plan specification. I mean, they get full construction documents so that you really are crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's, so that if they come back and they say, they're tiring of this long project, say that we have that discussion, you sign the notes, here it is, you even had it in the scope of work, so
right.
Try to give them as much information to make an educated decision on pulling the trigger on that job or not, because you don't want unhappy clients.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure the timeline's even bigger deal right now with all the stuff that's going on.
It's more
industry.
difficult for us,
Yeah.
And we do try to, we tell them that, especially when shopping furniture, it'll be in stock and you go to buy it and it's out of stock, things like that. That appliances, we pretty much know who we can get right now in a reasonable time frame and who we can't. So again, that's what the professional brings to the table.
So I'm sure it's a pet peeve when a client doesn't understand your value. You were talking about that a little bit earlier. So how do you convey that and actually build their confidence in you?
Well, I think for one thing, the longevity of how long I've been doing it. I think that the value, are you speaking of like, do they think that at what process of value are you speaking of? That?
I guess, if they are questioning your choices or the budget or anything like that. I mean, obviously they hired you for a reason. But I've heard a lot of designers talk recently about having them understand the value of your services. Yeah.
Well, I like to, once they've signed with me and given me money, it's all, better give me money first. Then it's up to me to present preliminary plans. So in a preliminary meeting, what I typically do is I draw up what they want. And then I draw up 2 other variations and just a bird's eye view. Plan A, B, and C, with a design statement for each, which pretty much gets us, and there may even be a D if it's easy enough to see that this job could go a few different ways. But the initial meeting that I'm having with them, they're giving me a lot of information that I apply to the formulas of getting these 4 different plans. But I want to surprise them. I want to take them out of the box. And usually what they thought they wanted, they didn't want. And as the professional, you can see that their confidence in me after that meeting is big, because they could have never done that without me showing them.
Right.
And so that's a real biggie, is that preliminary design meeting with just, the footprint of the layout. And just, I always like to take them to the unexpected, which they usually end up picking.
Okay, I'm going to pivot over to team members. So we know that you are dealing with all sorts of different personalities on a project. So how do you navigate those?
Yeah, that is a challenge. Yeah, and especially, I'm in Florida, and I've been in this industry since, 1985. So you can imagine this little blonde girl walking out on the job site. You ran into all kinds of personalities, and I still do today, although now I'm a lot older and a lot meaner. But you do want to get along with the team. But there are going to be those cases that you don't. But one thing that I learned in my yoga practice is that you want to do the unexpected with a grouch, and so I'm talking about like that foreman or that project manager that just wants to be boss, And we had this one guy that would call, he would call in, and the girls were like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to him. It's scary, And I got on the phone. I said, hey, and so I tried it out. Instead of getting on the phone and just saying, hello, I got on the phone. I said, hey, Tom, how are you doing? How was your weekend? And you could hear this big gruff guy go, because nobody had done that ever to him,
right.
I'm sure. And I just kind of got him off balance, and he's like, he goes, good. How was yours? And do you know that won him over?
Wow.
So really, as simple as that is changing the tone.
Right.
Now, that doesn't always work, and I know that. I have failed moments. But as long as you have a team that supports you, that's very important. So, and that means the owner, or somebody higher than that person that's out to get you. But, personalities, you got to play in the sandbox. I think that if you are good at what you do, you earn the respect, and you're always going to have haters. We do, no matter what we do. And all you can do is put one foot in front of the other and do the best job you can do. Never throw anyone under the bus if you can help it, because that makes an enemy for life.
All right, so we talked earlier about that you've owned your own firm since 1992, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about what that's like. I'm sure there are some things that you like to do better than others, but how do you keep it all afloat and make sure you are able to do what you want to do out of all of those tasks that you're in charge of?
Yeah, well, I keep evolving. So in 1992, I opened a high-end cabinetry showroom. And what I like to do, I would evolve to, right? So, of course, we start out designing kitchens and baths for our clients, but then that wasn't enough for me. And I started to study lighting design. So I evolved with what makes me happy and apply it as another service. And it keeps me satisfied, and it increases my income by doing that as well. So it's a pretty cool thing. But I started out with the showroom in 1992, and I was in one location right on the beach until 2005. And then I expanded, and that was a mistake. I decided to move downtown, take a big corner showroom, and I hated it. You talk about what I hate. Oh my goodness. And we had two hurricanes within 3 weeks of one another. We were in the housing boom. I'm building this big showroom. It was a nightmare. But the biggest thing that I hated about it was managing people. Trying to find the help that you need to run something like that. It just seemed like I kept walking into a wall. No matter who I tried to hire, I couldn't find the right people. So managing people is not my thing. I don't like to manage people. So when the recession hit, I closed that showroom, and I thought, how is this going to work? So as you know, Chelsea, I started a virtual design company, and initially thinking, well, we can work outside the borders, and tried that. I still had my firm, and I kept my firm, and I ended up a month after closing the showroom getting the biggest job in my career. So I was back in business, even though we were in a recession. And then, I started getting job after job again, and getting real busy again. and continued on like that. Also then started doing the influencing. So I didn't have a brick and mortar. And I'll tell you, I really liked it. Although I think depending on where you're at in your career, you need to start at a brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So where I'm at in my career, what I like best is what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing now, I've worked for my home office primarily, but then I had a luxury home builder contact me and ask if my design firm would work with all their clients. I'm like, well, that's great. Okay. And they allowed me to build a showroom in one of the homes. They gave us a house. So we built it. And then that, it kind of dissolved. It's no longer happening, that development. And another, now I've become the luxury home developers design firm, which I can do this time in my career. And again, they have a commercial showroom that I go and meet my clients at, and I can meet clients outside of their clients there. Mm-hmm. So it's a win-win. So there's a lot of different ways you can, you don't have to have a brick and mortar, but I think if you're starting out, I was 29 when I opened my showroom. I don't regret anything that I did. And I had my showroom from 1992, closed it in 2010, a long time. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't make sense at that time to have that, nor was it affordable because of the recession. And right. All of a sudden, Florida was like California, we were just ground zero.
Right.
So, but I learned and I evolved. And then I found out, gee, I like this. And it allowed me to not, to focus what I do best. Mm-hmm. It allowed me to focus what I do best, which is design, the clients. I started the International Design Blog. That's a separate business. It allowed me to diversify out in many different directions as opposed to managing people. I probably make more money now than I ever did. Mm-hmm. So a showroom takes a lot of overhead, and I bypass that, which is nice.
Yeah.
And I don't have to manage people.
So just thinking about the last year that our industry has been pivoting with all these challenges because of the pandemic. And then you mentioned several years before that, it was the recession. You've talked a little bit about how you have been able to deal with those challenges. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I don't be afraid of change, I heard people say, follow your heart, but there were times in my life that I couldn't appreciate that because I was scared to death of, it was a different time. I had kids, in mm-hmm. school or whatever, and I was a lot younger, and, you have to put a roof over your head, so there's different times. But once I took that advice. Once I said, I'm going to go in this direction because that's where my heart's taking me. I'm going in this direction. And I did it fearlessly. I won't mm-hmm. say I didn't have anxiety for 2 months because I did. But when I did that, my whole world opened up. A whole new world of possibilities and exciting opportunities that if I had stayed in that showroom, I'd still be in that box mm-hmm. in the brick and mortar. So, what I do now is so diversified and so cool for me that it took a journey to get here. And I'm not saying everybody has to put in the sweat equity, right? You're just not going to say, hey, I'm a designer and I'm great. Come hire me. No, you got to put in the sweat equity, and you've got to, again, from the time in 1992, I photographed all my jobs, and I still have those photographs. But I mean, I did, and I quickly started putting my work into design competitions and building. I didn't even know we were going to have an internet. I mean, think about that, right? But did it serve me? It did. So
yeah, definitely.
Because I was set up for it, and because when it did happen, when this internet thing happened, I had some sort of branding already going on. So, it's just been a whole learning thing for me to keep taking those challenges and moving forward and finding what makes me happy.
Right. So I'm going to end with what we promised everyone, that you would share at least one of your pet peeves regarding just design itself and decor.
Well, I am over Carrara marble bathrooms and porcelain looking Carrara marble. Like, please, my goodness, that is so old. And I hate to be that designer that would say that, because, I see designers say the dumbest things online about, putting somebody down. I'm not putting anyone down. I'm just saying it's over. Let's do something different. And, let's do something other than gray Carrara looking marble. So that's my biggest peeve. I think there are no rules to design.
Right.
I think a great designer doesn't follow the trends, they set them. I know that's an old cliche, but it is so true, because you got to be brave. Don't be afraid of making a mistake.
Right.
Working with the developers, I've had the pleasure of doing model homes. So I've been able to do what I wanted to do, and they believed in me enough to allow me to do that. And that's been wonderful. I know we don't always have that opportunity, because, our clients, it's their home and it's their ideas. You can only lead them. And I usually do. When it comes to career, I'm like, kind of out of trend. You're at the end of that trend. And they usually listen to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for joining us today and talking about some pet peeves and how you've been able to overcome industry challenges and those to do with your career and all of that. I'm sure our listeners and viewers have gotten a lot of great information.
Well, great. Well, thanks again, Chelsea. I always love talking to you.
All right, you too. Talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.